sort of amend. It's like saying, how can we amend apartheid, or how can we amend the Holocaust? Our the stain of gender-based violence, unfortunately, will forever, even if gender-based violence goes away, it will always remain a burden for South Africans, right? You know, you look at situations like Nene, right? That was one of the most traumatic things that, you know, personally had ever happened to me in my youth, because one day we were trying to find this girl and, you know, we had hope. And then the next day they say she's been raped and burnt. And, you know, that kind of thing, I don't think it can ever be amended. And, you know, may God rest her soul. I think how we fix this, you know, and personally, I've given up on government, right? They've proven they don't care. They've really proven that. They come out for these marches, they say their words, and then they go back into hiding. So it's time we did what our ancestors did, and we take it into our own hands. If we want justice, we get it for ourselves. No need for violence. Like I said earlier, we need to teach our sons. And we need to teach ourselves and our peers, you know, start it now. Teach our peers. If it starts with small things, you know. It starts with your friends saying, "Yo, bro, look at that girl's booty." You have to stop those kind of things. The way we look at women in society must change. And we're responsible for people around us, you know? Because as guys, we know what kind of conversations go down within our friend groups, what people are saying, right? It takes, you know, if it means getting dumped by your friends, that's what it means. But the problem is that this male fragility that occurs, you know, males are so fragile, you know, they don't want to seem like, they this within their friend groups. That's what needs to happen. The male ego is really one of the most dangerous things that, you know, plagues the human world right now. It's why things like Black Lives Matter still need to happen to this day. We still need to tell people Black Lives Matter because of ego, because of hatred. People might not think it, but a lot of South African men hate women for some odd reason, mentally, right? They'll never say it, but in your mind, to be able to sit in a country and see all this happening and say nothing. There's people who say nothing, who don't even care. They're like, it's just another thing. But then they jump on Black Lives Matter. We need to start putting ourselves aside, fighting for something that doesn't benefit you. As soon as we can fight for something that doesn't benefit us, that's how the world becomes a better place. It took a few white people during apartheid to fly overseas and tell the message of what was happening here, right? One or two to help us move to a better place, and look where we are now. But the problem is, because we live in a world run by men, it's up to, again, those small few people who are gonna stand up. And if it means fighting, it means fighting, right? Because if not, it's gonna continue, and it is continuing. How long have we been marching? How long have we been having, we must engage in conversation, you know what I mean? It's about doing stuff like this, letting people out there in the world see, you know? Personally, I feel like that's how we change it. Trust me, it's gonna take a long time, which is even more painful, because, you know, every second, right now as we speak, a woman's getting raped and killed right now. That's a scary statistic to think about.
Yeah. So my view is that we need really to do all we can to improve the consciousness of men, boys, you know, by doing all we can, whether it's educating parents, you know, television programs, churches, schools, you know, having a very clear message and also propagating specific values, and deal with men more than what is currently doing, because the focus currently is that is to just blame men only, and there's this term they use, men are whatever, which I don't think it's the correct way. The correct way is to raise the level of consciousness of men through whatever means, and do the correct values. You're right, government is not.
I think as it stands now,
government is not effective in whatever they're doing, because there's something called propaganda. Propaganda can be a negative word, but if used properly, it's a positive concept, because propaganda means you push certain values so that people are kind of forced to think in a certain way. So if you don't drive a strong propaganda machinery in schools, in churches, in families, you will not win this war. Yeah.
I think as it stands now, personally, when I hear men are trash, right? I'm not offended at all, mainly because if you look at a term like Black Lives Matter, for example, it doesn't mean that every other life doesn't matter, right? I think men are trash just means the men who are doing what they are doing are trash, instead of men are trash.
But they would be trash if you say they're trash.
No, but I mean, it's like Black Lives Matter. If you say
it's what's called it can be a fulfilling prophecy. If you prophesy that men are trash, they'll be trash. That's my view.
But if you say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean
that's
every life doesn't matter.
That's positive.
But it can also it can also be it's the way you look at it. If you look at men are trash as a negative thing,
trash is negative.
But I mean, are you trash?
Yes, that's why I don't even want to hear that men are trash.
Exactly. So if
they are not trash, men are responsible, men are powerful, they can raise family in the correct way.
I think the men that do gender-based violence are trash. And that's what I think men are trash means personally to me. But I guess that's not the conversation at hand. But yeah, I think that's the minimum we can do to try to fix what's going on. But it takes divine intervention. Like it's gonna take a miracle to fix the issue that's going on right now.
Okay, yeah. So I think it really needs people to go deeper in themselves and seek to resolve hanging issues, because to look, the violence itself is an end product of something that's maybe deeper inside the human being. So the fact that you are hitting someone, that hitting, you can't fix the hitting by stopping the hitting only. You have to look at the root cause of where is this thing coming from. And I suppose if we spend more time trying to really go deep into ourselves and accept the challenges that we have, and to look at our inner identity of who we are, I think that could help actually, because no one, you can't say someone else must fix a problem if you are involved in something. It starts with you to say, okay, inside of me, let me find out where, for instance, where my anger comes from. If you are the kind of person who becomes angry at things easily, you need to investigate further, go deep, and try to understand where this anger is coming from, and see what are the tactics that you can use in order to face it, and at the same time in order to manage it. And then once you've gone that deep in, then it solves the outer problem of the violence itself. Because once you've understood yourself, you're no longer persuaded by these triggers. The triggers will come and go, but deep down you would have resolved yourself inside that the triggers are almost like clouds that come on the sky. They come to pass. And then you just allow them to pass. You allow them to pass because you know that deep down, nothing that is being said by someone else can provoke you because you know that your identity is solid in terms of who you are. You perfectly understand yourself and you are happy with who you are. You can't be triggered by people who make you to believe that you are someone else or you're something else or you're less than what you really are. So I think that's what we could do. It's an individual journey rather than, I don't believe in these big picketing exercises or that. I don't think those things actually in the long run solve problems. It's nice for people to come together and fight for something. But at the end of the day, this thing, it happens at critical moments when people are there, the two people in the home. That's where it happens. And the only way to solve that thing is really to go deep inside and solve it as individuals. Yeah, I suppose maybe if we can have some sort of a program, maybe if we organize ourselves better to say there's pockets of individuals or pockets of groups of individuals who stand for a certain view. So imagine, let's say we've got a group called the Nice Men of Pretoria. Let's say we call our group the Nice Men of Pretoria. Mm-hmm. And then maybe we post from time to time, maybe encouraging remarks, or maybe some ideas in terms of how we can address this issue of gender-based violence. But you see, the tricky part about social media is that what I've noticed is that whichever angle you come from, someone is going to find a way to attack you. You know, so maybe that kind of a group that we put together, it focuses on the messaging that, okay, what kind of messaging do we send such that it's difficult to pick up ambiguity in the message. And the message is such that there's a certain way that men and women can enjoy life better by working together. So those kind of messaging. So I'm particularly against the approach of focusing on what's negative. So the kind of message that says, gender-based violence is bad, men are trash, what, those kind of messaging, I don't think they're very helpful. I think the kind of messaging that's helpful is the one that encourages the kind of behavior that you want to see. So I think if more and more people think about those ideas and start communicating in that way, and the kind of posts that they post on social media are aligned with that kind of messaging, I think it would make a difference, definitely.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna sort of, if there's one thing I feel, I don't like talking about the esoteric stuff like, you know, generational curses and all of those things, but if there's one thing that I do believe that we've been cursed with is a curse of forgetting. I think we forget so much of our history, we forget so much of our experiences, and that leads us to every generation starts from scratch. We start from zero. You know, we don't have a foundation from which to start, and whereby each generation starts off at a different level to the other one. You know, if you look at, for example, each generation of fathers, you know, in my generation of fathers, everyone starting from scratch. You go into fatherhood with zero. You have no blueprint. You going there with YouTube, you know, you're going in there with Google, you know, you literally, and that was the case for our fathers, you know. And for me, this is the biggest challenge that we have. So in terms of solutions, the one thing is that we need to stop forgetting. We need to retain our knowledge, and by this translates into we need to be able to look further into the future than next year, the year after that. You know, we need to look generations down the line. You know, and right now it's very scary to say that, because if you look at the direction that we're going in and the trajectory and the momentum that we have in going there, we can't think 3 generations down the line. We don't even want to think about it. You know, the way things are right now, you don't want to think about what's going to be happening with your grandkids. You understand? Because even for us right now, it's difficult, and we don't see it. It was different for the previous generation, because they had 1994 as a possible light. They were like, if we hold on, you know, let's just hold on. We know there's something that needs to change. The system that we're in, it needs to change. This government that we're in, it needs to change. And we know that if this particular thing changes, we know for a fact that things will be better. Like for a fact, we know that things will be not greatly, but things will be better. Whereas we as a generation, we don't have that. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know what needs to happen. And we don't know what kind of change we want to anticipate, right? So my thing is, right now, men need to reflect, right? Men need to learn to be uncomfortable. That is the first thing. We need to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We need to learn to have uncomfortable conversations and make uncomfortable changes, right? And we need to do this even in the small groups that we have. Nothing big is coming. You know, actually, I'm wrong. Something very big did come. It was a virus. You know, it was very big and it changed a lot. And it's going to, I think, when the virus sort of subsides and whatever, only then we will see the damage that it actually did. You know, where the number of families that it has ripped apart, you know, the relationship that it has ended, the questioning that it brought on into each and every person. You know, you had to ask yourself questions, whether you are in any age group, whether you are 16, 21, 50, in every generation, even the elderly asking themselves deep questions right now. I remember I had a conversation with my mother a few months ago where she was like, she's scared of the world that she's going to leave behind. You know, almost waswaba, how, you know, she's ashamed of the world that she will leave behind, because this is not a type of world to leave behind. You know, feeling like more should have been done by now. You know, but to focus on the solutions, we need to listen to what women say. Like you listened to your mother and you didn't brush it off. You know, those are the things we need to like listen and fight your urge to brush things off or fight your urge to explain. It's very important that it took you a long time to answer your mother, because you had to jump through all the barriers of that you were taught to basically discard what she was saying. That in itself is the most fundamental and important thing of the change that we need. Keep quiet. Just keep quiet and listen. Fight that urge to want to revert back to what you know. step into what you don't know. If you want to fit into the future that is coming, be willing to step into what you don't know. And if more men challenge themselves in that regard, I think that we will have a generation of better fathers. And for me, all of this revolves around fatherhood. For me, I feel that the majority of this challenge revolves around fatherhood. If we had better fathers, we would be if we had different fathers, we would be a different generation. Or had the fathers we had taken different decisions, we would be a different generation. Because this is a cycle that is traveling down men, through the patrilineal lineage of men, and it is only them that can make a change. So if we men need to challenge ourselves and listen more, stop reacting, and try to look at the world from the point of view of women, and but at the same time, you need to evaluate yourself and ask yourself, outside of the manly things that you are taught about a man as a provider, what value do you have in this world? What value do you want to bring in this world? If you couldn't pay rent, what value do you bring into a family? And it's a scary thing for I think for a lot of men to ask, to say that, because it represents a total loss of control. And the loss of control scares us to the point where that you're willing to kill someone.
What I like about our generation is that everyone is opinionated. Everyone is opinionated, and they stand strongly upon the opinions. That's one thing I like about our generation. So to mend this whole problem, to fix this whole problem, I think this disconnect that's been happening between black males and black females, or males and females in general. I think if we reconnect that disconnect, even just for a little bit, if we take one brick off that wall, even if it's just one brick, or even if it's a piece of that brick, the results will be shown all over. That disconnect will eventually just break. If we see, as a society, if you see gender-based violence, if you see any type of violence happening on anyone, we should stand up for it. We should stand up for it. And by doing that, one small little act can ripple the whole thing. It's like the butterfly effect. Like a butterfly, one small little act can have a huge impact. So we shouldn't, because the thing is, society lets these things happen. Because one thing that I have in mind is that I shouldn't intervene on other people's problems. I don't want to involve myself in other people's problems. You see someone getting abused, you don't know why they're getting abused. So you step back. You're like, I don't know why she's getting abused. It may be because she did something that she deserves to be abused for. But then as humans, nobody deserves to be abused. I don't care what anybody did. I don't care what you did. I don't care what you went through. Nobody deserves to be abused. Although if you did something wrong, you do deserve to be punished. But a punishment that's just is not just. Just because you think that punishing them is the right thing doesn't mean that it's necessarily a right thing.
Okay.
Maybe say you're a male. Okay, you are. Okay, maybe you saw a female walking around. So say the female is walking around with the kid is hungry, wants something to eat. The female is eating something, but then doesn't want to give it to the kid. I mean, act of kindness. You should at least give a piece to them, right? So the kid cries, want something to eat, they're hungry, the kid cries. And instead of giving them something to eat, the female beats the kid. The woman beats the kid for wanting something to eat. Now, a male comes and intervenes and now starts fighting with the woman, saying that you should give the kid something to eat. If the woman is aggressive, maybe, it's just an example, the woman becomes aggressive and tells the man to back off, that it's none of his business. But the man gets too into it, too deep into it, and they start having a little fight. And then the man also feels a little bit attacked and starts attacking the female, you know? But then people that pass by only see the bad in what's happening. They only see the man abusing the female, you know? And they see the kid crying, and hence they assume that typical, the man is abusing the woman, you know? And the people around, the reason why they don't usually act is they see it and they be like, maybe something happened. Maybe the male is going through something and is inflicting damage over the woman. Maybe the woman did something deserving of that little punishment, so hence I shouldn't stick my nose into it. And then they back off. They only just report it to put on the internet. They just back off. Exactly. So I think that if us as a society, we stop thinking like that, because obviously you wouldn't want that to happen on you. Obviously you would want, if it's happening on you, if you're being abused, you would want someone to help you, right? You would cry for help to someone else, right? You would want someone to help you. So as a society, we need to change that little mindset. You know, because we're opinionated, we should bring up those opinions, say what we actually feel. You know, if it's wrong, it's wrong. Stand up for it. Don't just let it happen and be like, thank God it's not happening to me. Because it can. It can happen. Or if not to you, it can happen to someone close to you. And when it does, you would want someone else to help you. Now, why would you want someone else to help you when you don't want to help someone else? Just because someone is a stranger doesn't mean that you shouldn't help them. We're all connected one way or another. We're all humans. We're all connected through the same bloodline. We were all born of one woman. We were all created by one God. So technically, we're all a family. We shouldn't let family be abused. We shouldn't watch these acts happen to someone else when we wouldn't want them. Exactly, when we wouldn't want them to happen on us. You know, do unto others what you would want them to do to you.
Right. So I mentioned my my beliefs, right? By saying that I go to church. So my answers really will be based on that, and being aware that there'll be a lot of people who disagree, you know. But I believe that I believe that the Bible talks about us, the people, you know, in the Bible is, you know, our ancestors. Sorry, not is, you know, our ancestors, right? And there are certain things that we were supposed to do that we didn't do, and there are things that we were not supposed to do and we have done and we continue to do that we were supposed not, you know, not to be doing. And you know, there is no other book really that unifies, you know, the African, as I would, you know, put it, like the Bible, because then, you know, it tells you it can tell us who we are and what, you know, how we were supposed to live in relation to one another, family, you know, how do you relate to other people? But because we left that, we were exposed. We were exposed. We were without any I'll say national identity as to who we are and what are we worth and what is our purpose. But I think let me just make it a practical. Let me give you a practical answer. For instance, I think because I told you about my father. My parents. They divorced. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I hardly had a conversation with my father. So my father did not teach me how to be a man.
Mm.
Right? The person who taught me how to be a man is a woman. You know what I'm saying? It's my mother. Right? I was lucky I had uncles. But the authority in my life was my mother. Whereas it was supposed to be my dad, because he is the one who gave me life. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
But he wasn't there. So that creates a disconnect, because he is supposed to pass on to me what his father had passed on to him in terms of how do you treat a woman? How do you, build a family? How do you relate to your uncles and your aunts? But once he is taken out, and then I sort of had to go back to my mother's family, it broke that, then, you know what I'm saying? So, the link to him, was broken. And, personally, I think it creates chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to recognize that fatherlessness is a big issue in our society. Because, and I'll come back to the gender-based violence thing, because if I was taught to relate to a woman, then, chances are I would handle issues of conflict better.
Mm-hmm.
But because, I'm not taught that, then, I'm gonna follow my natural instinct, right?
Mm.
And I want to bring it back to the fathers, because see, the fathers were there for discipline. The mothers, are there for nurturing, right? And we know that mothers are more attuned to nurturing than discipline. And therefore, when in the family you miss, those two influences, it can create chaos in the family. But now, if you have a society where that is, the most common, dysfunction, in the community, then you can imagine, what happens, right? So I wish my dad was there to help me, and I think I was lucky. As I said, my mother was there, and then my uncles were there, and then, when I became older, there was an intervention in terms of, deciding that I'm going to follow this way of living. The Bible will become my standard, and I think it sort of helps in there. But for those who did not have all these things available, there's no uncle, or even if the uncle is there, he's also abusive because he's also struggled with 1, 2, 3. Again, you can imagine what kind of society, that creates. So I think the absence of fathers is the biggest problem that we have, and is the biggest contributor to the violence that we experience, in our communities. Or let me say active fathers, right?
Yeah.
So when I say fatherlessness, I'm not, because we could be there as fathers, but not participate,
Or not
in raising our kids.
Okay.
Yeah, we can provide the money, the material things, without providing the emotional contribution that makes the impact over many generations. So I think, in a nutshell, for me, that's where we need to start.
So I think generally with COVID era, I think one thing that could be of quite that could assist in curbing the issue of gender-based violence, it's for men to start talking in their corners, to be able to talk about the problems that they go through, because generally men will also have been cultured in a way of saying that we can't talk when we face issues. Kaswana bare monna halle, meaning that men don't cry generally. So so if men could find a safe space to talk about the challenges that they face, it could be through social, the WhatsApp, or it could be through, now we have technology such as Zoom. We'll be having a get-together session on Zoom with a couple of my friends who are men, just to catch up, and also to be able to voice some of the challenges that as men we have during this period. Because if that cannot be addressed, I think men will continue to. There's a lot of expectation generally on men as well, to behave in a certain way. So, and if we don't have an outlet to voice some of the challenges that we have, I think it bottles up, and as a result, because on the pyramid, remember, with apartheid, on the pyramid, there was a white man, there was a white woman, there was a black man, and below black man it was the woman, and below that it was children. So, and the other thing that I've also learned is generally we can stomach the abuse that we get from white people, but because on the pyramid there's other people, it's easier for us to voice our frustrations, or to push our frustrations on either the black woman or the children as well. So as black men, we need to start voicing up certain things in people, in safe spaces that we can find out, and we need to go through the history to check how. Because also with the introduction of freedom, we never sat down as men to say that what is expected of us as like men specific, and also with the changing landscape whereby black women now are at liberty to be any more than black men. How we can find space within that one. So as black men, we need to go through history to check on how as black men would be able to. And also, and I think Also, a request to sisters, fellow sisters as well. It's to be patient with us, not to put a lot of pressure on us in terms of if I'm not earning anything as well, and my partner is earning, they should have a space for us to be able to stomach and say that Tsepo is not working. I should be able to provide for that, because the other story is as well, it's because men are known generally to provide. Once you don't provide, you're no longer a man as well. So a humble request is for sisters as well. It's if a man is not providing anything, be patient with them. You know, there are also jokes around whereby if an uncle in a family doesn't work, you know, in a black society, you'd find that in a fridge there'd be cheese or yogurt that would be written for kids lunch pack. You know, there's that joke, and purely it's been made for black men, you know, who are not working, uncles that are not working, so that they do not touch those things, you know. So I think also the expectation is from the sisters and the other gender to be able to be patient with us as we're relearning on how to become a man in today's society. There are also propagandas as well, you know, from the other race that might be funding some of our people to voice such negative things. The intention not being there to build the Africans, but further to break them, because you know, if you can check, um, 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 you know, especially for Africans, the things that we also that we pride ourselves with, they're generally not acceptable. I know for African culture, I've been raised by a single parent, my mom, but generally, you know, there's also a tendency by Africans to be said that they celebrate they celebrate, you know, women raising their kids all by themselves. So, and it's only in Africans, you know, with white people and Caucasians and Indians and other races. Family comes first, you know. So what I'm trying to say is we should just make sure that whatever we should guard against propaganda, so that we might be able to be a family, an African family whereby there's a father, mother, and children who are being raised within that. But we don't push each other far away. But we should be able to build a nation that is all encompassing of all these faces. So let's guard against the propaganda that might be.
We need to be redirected back to finding ourselves as Black people, that we need to teach our children. We need that moral sense of who is Godfrey, who is Letabo, and instill that in a Black child, instill that in a Black boy, in a Black girl, that this is how you should act. But before you do this, know who you are in God. Have a relationship, have a deeper relationship with God. Because if you do not have that, then it will become very, very, very tricky. Because that's why I'm saying that when the TV switch is on, when you see something that is happening on the TV, you'll be simply misdirected because you don't have that foundation. Foundation. And the foundation plays a huge, huge part, because as a Christian, I believe that Jesus Christ is the foundation, that he's that rock that keeps you firm. Even in shaking storms, in rainy days, he keeps you firm and very well grounded. Yeah, that's what I can say. So we need to revisit ourselves. We need to review. We need to relook at to ourselves and say, nah, this is not how things are supposed to be. So yeah, that's what I can say. So we need to teach ourselves to be in Christ.